Hello, my name is Chris Galinis, and this is my 1966 Ford Galaxie convertible. I got the car back in 2017, and I've always been a big fan of the mid to late 60s style cars. A really big fan of the Galaxies, especially with the stacked headlights and the square taillights. And this particular Galaxie is about the mid-level of it. The stacked headlights started in 1965 with the Galaxie, went all the way to 68. So I was looking for something along those lines. I really like the idea of getting like a Pontiac GTO, which also had the stacked headlights, but trying to find one of those for a reasonable price is just not, at least one in a running driving condition, that's not going to be a rust bucket. So I saw this car on Craigslist probably late 2015, early 2016, and it was just out of my price range and I didn't have the funds for it. So I was like, you know, if I see this car again, I'm going to grab it. Well, fast forward about a year to end of March of 2017, and sure enough, it shows up. So I emailed the guy, and turns out he is a former Army Ranger, Iraqi war veteran, and I go down and I meet with him about the car, took it for a test drive. The exterior is as you see it now. I haven't done anything with the exterior, and it had instead of the American Racing Torque Thrust rims on it, it had just a standard hubcaps. So the guy was asking $14,500 for it, and I took it for a test drive, and it was obvious the brakes were shot. The motor was in good condition, and he said it had been recently rebuilt, although that had been a number of years ago. The car, when it came from the factory, was they call it the Galaxie 500. So it was a bench seat with the column shift, and somewhere along the way, I believe it was the previous owner and his dad. It was his dad's car, and then his dad passed away, and then gave it to the Army Ranger, where they had worked on it. So it was a kind of a project car for the two of them. And they took the bench seat out, and they put in the buckets with the console, and changed a little bit of the interior, but I believe the idea was to try and get it to become like an XL. The XL model came with bucket seats and the floor shift, and then the top of the line model, which was the 7-liter, which was all that along with the 428 engine. So I picked up the car. I offered him, he was asking $14,500. I offered $7,000. He said $9,000, and I said done deal. So bought the car, took it home, and immediately started working on the brakes. The 1966 was the last year of the single reservoir master cylinder. So in 1967 they went to the dual reservoir master cylinder. So I picked up one of those off of Rock Auto and put that in. And then the brakes needed attention. The shoes and the drums were in actually really good condition, but I had no clue as to how old the wheel cylinders were. So I pretty much replaced all the brake hardware, and then I found out as I was going through the brakes that the rear brake line had a leak in it. It actually had rusted out. So I had to cut that off, and I ended up using a product called Nicop, which is nickel copper. It's just as strong as the regular stainless steel, but it's flexible and easy to work with. So I did a Nicop brake line, replaced all the brake hoses, and that alleviated the stopping problem. The next problem I had on it was the front suspension on it was so loose when I stopped, I didn't know whether it was going to go darting left or right. So it was really kind of a big mystery. So I took apart all the front suspension, the upper and lower control joints, and they had the original ball joints in there from 1966. I know they're original because from the factory they came riveted. So that's kind of fun trying to get the rivets out on a 50-something-year-old car. And I was successful on one, but on one of the other A-arms, upper A-arms, I ended up destroying it. And I was like, well, I guess I could go to a junkyard and try and find something there. But it turns out Hotchkiss actually makes upper and lower control arms for the Galaxie, thanks to Jay Leno. I don't know if you've seen his stuff on YouTube there. So the engine it has in it now is a same one it came from the factory, a stock 352 FE motor with a 4-barrel carburetor. At some point the motor was rebuilt and with 30 over pistons put in, but otherwise it's pretty much bone stock with the Autolite 4100 carburetor. One of the first engine mods I did on it was glass packs, because hey, you know, glass packs are cool. I don't know if that's really an engine mod, but it needed a little bit more breathing, so I got some headers from Ford Powertrain Applications here in Puyallup, Washington, and Stan was great. The great thing about the FPA headers is I didn't have to lift the motor or pull any motor mounts. They just fit right in, with the exception of on the passenger side. I did have to drop the starter just to get that last bolt to make it work. The ignition on it's been changed. I went with the Pertronix electronic ignition system. So along with the Pertronix electronic ignition, it's got the flamethrower coil, and then thanks to my brother, I've got a MSD 6AL ignition box. And the last thing I had done to it recently was I had the distributor recurved by Wes Adams down in Hillsdale, or Hillside Automotive down in Klamath Falls, and he does a fantastic job. The headers are now going into 2.5-inch exhaust to an X pipe, and then the same cherry bombs with some nice stainless tips out the back, and Extreme Muffler and Federal Way did a great job doing those. The car resides in lovely Federal Way, Washington, in my 2-car garage. Nothing real special there. It does have a lot of, I just put in a 60-gallon air compressor for my shop tools and running on 220, but I would have liked a little bit bigger garage to put it in. Yeah, actually I was at the Milton Tavern having drinks with the wife and some friends about 3 weeks ago, and I saw pretty much the sister car to this car, another 66 Ford Galaxie red. I wasn't sure what top it had on it because it had the boot on it, but it had the red interior, and he actually had the American Racing torque thrust wheels on it as well, although they were the 15 inches and not the 16-inch ones. It looked a little bit rustier. And he didn't have the hood emblem on it. He had the hood spear, which is more indicative of what the XLs came with instead of the emblem. Well, mechanically for the car, I actually found a 390 block on Craigslist that I tore it down, and my plan is to rebuild that. I like a little bit more performance out of it. The 352 wasn't the smallest motor you could get, but it was kind of a middle of the road. And the 428 was the top of the line motor you could get for it, but trying to find 428s, just the blocks alone are running around $3,000. Ironically, Ford FE stands for freaking expensive, and it's true. But I have a 390 block that I found on Craigslist, and I tore it down and had it shot abraded and magnafluxed, and that's going to be my candidate for a rebuild. So I don't want anything with too much more performance. It runs really good right now, but I would like to put Edelbrock aluminum heads and intake manifold on it. You know, if I really got wild while I'm rebuilding it, I might as well stroke it. And Survival Motorsports puts out a fantastic kit, the 445 stroker kit. So turn a 390, bore it 30 over, and you got 445 cubic inches, which would be pretty cool. Well, so far the farthest I've driven the car isn't too far, just about 40 miles down to, ironically, where I picked it up, and then I've driven it down there a couple of times. But my plan for this summer, pre-COVID, was to drive out to either Bremerton or Oak Harbor and take the family, and I think this would be a great car for the drive-in movie theater. But I wouldn't hesitate to, I was actually looking forward to maybe even running down to the swap meet down in Portland one of these times, but just haven't got around to it. I get people all the time that come up to me and ask me about the car, probably because I drive it. In the summertime, this is my daily driver. We live in Western Washington. I got to take up advantage of as much sun as I can, and this is one of the reasons why I bought the car. So I'll be at pretty much any grocery store or hardware store, and people will come up to me and ask about it, which is actually kind of fun because I'm kind of a people person anyway, so I don't mind people, and a car person, so I don't mind talking about it. But I always get, or you know, when I'm at the stoplight, people say, oh yeah, my dad had a 65, or is that a 67, and we'll talk about the differences and stuff like that. But the coolest one I had, and it hasn't happened yet, but I was at Lowe's, and somebody walked up to me and we started talking about the car, and he said, do you do weddings? And I said, well, I haven't yet, but you know, here's my number, give me a call. So I think this would be a fantastic car for doing that kind of stuff. So when I bought the car, the previous owner had left a bunch of the license plates in the trunk, collector's plate, and then one of them was a personalized plate that said 174 Elks. So I almost want to believe that this might have been in a parade once or twice in Tacoma from the Elks Club. I pretty much don't let anybody drive the car. It's kind of a little finicky with the brakes, and then compared to the way cars drive now, and the power steering on it is a little loose still. So that's one of the things I definitely got to work on. The other interesting fact on it is it started off life as a column shift automatic, and it's now a console shift. Well, the neutral safety switch is still wired on the column, so I have to kind of funky around where the console or the column shift to find the safety spot to get the car to start. This is almost my dream car. This is pretty darn close. My dream car would be the 1966 Galaxie convertible 7-liter, 4-speed. And actually ran one with the 427 with 2 4-barrel carburetors from the factory. If you can find one of those, I think there's about 7 of them that were there were 12 of them that they actually did, and I think they've only found 7 of them. But really nasty rust buckets are running six figures just to get one. So that would be my dream car. Only the downside of something like that, if I actually bought it, I wouldn't drive it because it would be more of an investment. So I guess my dream car would be a clone of that, so I could, burn rubber and not worry about crashing it. I'll probably, when I'm no longer driving it, I'll probably let my son have it. Or if he has no interest in it, I'll just sell it. I really don't want to sell it, but he's shown a little bit of interest in wrenching on the car with me, so we'll see how that goes. So it's got a 10-foot paint job. Whenever the paint was done, it was done a while ago, so it's got some dings and some blemishes and a little bit of orange peel here, but from 15 feet out it looks fantastic. So I think at some point down the road I might redo the paint. The interior, the carpet is pretty much shot. I'd love to do new carpet on it. And then in the process, when they were the father and son were restoring it, they changed some of the door panels and the rear seat out, so it's not really stock. So I'd like to go back to more the stock look. So I think that's definitely in my future down the road. And then of course the performance mods I talked about with the new engine. But beyond that, it's got a couple of issues on it. I did end up replacing the rear end from Quick Performance. They did a 350 rear end and it was fantastic.